George, we cannot see you. Did you know that? There you go.
I am trying my darndest to do this. I'm coming in through the Zoom browser online.
Oh, good.
Give me a second here, please.
Sure. We're still waiting for Sarah to get back. She went to grab a glass of water and then we'll start. Should just be a minute or two. Not even, I'm sure. There she comes.
Water is always good.
Right. Okay, I think it is 1:05 on October the 12th, 2020. I'd like to call the State of Texas Behavioral Health Executive Council to order. And Daryl, would you, it's maybe Tamala, is there, would someone from your staff call roll, please?
Yeah. Lori, can I hold on just 1 second? I'm trying to get one more social work board member in.
Okay.
Megan, can you hear us now?
She's area code 915. She's muted.
Right. Is this her, the 5262631?
I'm not certain. I'm sorry.
Megan, you're muted. Try *6 to unmute yourself. There you go.
Hello, everybody.
There we go.
Hi, Megan.
Hi.
Okay. All right. So, okay, Chair Conseco, you wanted me to call roll?
Would you mind?
Okay, I'll tell you what, I'm going to let Ms. Skiff do that for us. Brenda, can you call roll for BHEC?
Yes, sir. Chair Konsenko,
Present.
Dr. Abraham,
Present.
Mr. Belimowicz,
Present.
Mr. Brown,
Present.
Mr. Christofferson, Dr. Fletcher,
Present.
Mr. Francis,
Present.
Mr. Morris,
Present.
Mrs. Smotherman.
Present.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. And before I pass the next step to Tim so that he can open his meeting, I'd like to take a moment to thank Tim Brown for the volunteer work he did with regard to the backlog. He spent a week of his vacation, sounded like morning, noon, and night. And Tim, it's hard to find dedication like that. We're so grateful to you, not just on behalf of the board, but for everybody involved. Thank you for doing that.
Well, thank you for recognizing it was a pleasure. You know, it's important to me.
Jennifer, can you hear me?
It's important for me that the Texas State Board of Social Worker Examiners continues to function at its optimal level and also reflects well on the
Jennifer, can you hear me?
Sorry, go ahead, Tim.
And I appreciate the staff and all of their hard work in the licensing unit. And Daryl and Tim Spear welcoming me in. And
I am trying my darndest to do this. I'm coming in through the Zoom browser online.
Daryl, maybe you want to mute
Give
everybody.
me a second here, please.
Go ahead, Tim.
And I'd like to thank Alice for changing her work schedule to be there and be there with me as well. And all of the members of the licensing board were very welcoming. And, basically, I hope that I was able to help out some to alleviate the issues with the social work licensees and prospective licensees. That's the main objective, to make all of our areas function as well as they can. So thank you for recognizing that.
I think you're next.
Okay, so I'd like to go ahead and call to order the Texas State Board of Social Worker Examiners. Alice, do you mind to do roll call?
I can't hear her.
I believe she'll be on in just a second. She's connecting a new camera.
There we go.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
ma'am.
All right, great. Thank you. Sorry about that. All right, roll call. Chair Tim Brown,
Present.
Vice Chair Brian Brumley,
Present.
Megan Graham, public member,
Present.
Beverly Jackson Loss, professional member, Ben Morris, public member,
Present.
Martha Mosier, professional member,
Present.
Audrey Ramsbacher, professional member,
Present.
Mark Talbot, public member. There is a quorum present.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to, on behalf of BHEC, I'd like to announce that all public comments will be moved to the end of the meeting. I believe that's for both boards. Is that correct, Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Okay. Looks like the social work board will take up its agenda items first.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
So what we'd like to do now is to review changes suggested by the OOG's Budget and Policy Division to the proposed rules published in the July 17th, 2020 edition of the Texas Registry and recommended to the council for adoption at the September 11th regular meeting. So Alice, if you wouldn't mind to drive us through any items that we may need to look at that we haven't.
Sure. So you should have received a couple of emails regarding the suggested changes from the Office of the Governor. Let's see here. One of the Word documents was an index that shows, I mean, we all want to go page by page or just follow the index of the suggested changes?
I think that going by the index would be fine.
Okay, great. So if you pull up the index to changes as suggested by the Office of General and the 59-page PDF, the very first change suggestion is on page 8 in 781.301. I have it pulled up. A social worker shall maintain confidentiality as required by law, and that language has changed a little bit. Office of the Governor recommends changing this rule to require keeping things as confidential as the law permits, and the language was suggested by BHEC staff.
Ms. Bradford, Chair Brown, would y'all like me to share my screen so that we're all operating off the same?
Oh,
Thank you
yeah.
so much.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
There we go. Can y'all all see that now?
Yes.
Okay. Alice, you'll have to tell me what page to navigate to next.
Great, thanks. Are we going, Chair Brown, did you want to go one by one on the suggestions or?
Why don't we take them in and then at the end make the vote to agree?
Okay. The next page is, or any questions?
No, but I'm wondering if Daryl, could you make the size a little bit bigger, maybe to 75 as we scroll down? That's great. Thank you.
Page 13, 781.304I. If the licensee learns that false, misleading, deceptive, fraudulent, or exaggerated statements about the services, qualifications, or products have been made, the licensee shall take reasonable steps to correct the inappropriate claims, prevent their reoccurrence, and report the incident to the council. Changed from all available.
Okay, thank you.
Page 14, 305B. A licensee shall not engage in sexual contact or sexual exploitation with a client or a former client, a supervisee of the licensee, or a student at an educational institution at which the licensee provides professional or educational services.
Let me step in here and shed a little bit of light on this, because I know this is an unusual comment to read. What happened whenever the governor reviewed these rules is, and I met with them to go over the changes they were recommending. Obviously, some of their concerns would have required some substantive changes for us to do. And I didn't feel like we had the time. I felt like we needed to get some rules in place and adopted, and then we can go back later on and make some changes. So what I visited with the governor's office about is this was a rule that they were like, look, we feel like there needs to be something, there's probably needs to be some changes here, but the changes I think that it's going to take, or the changes, they weren't really able to articulate what they wanted just yet, but they feel like that there probably will need to be some changes in the future. So what I wanted to do is I just wanted to bring that to y'all's attention and say, the governor's saying, go ahead, you can go ahead and adopt this now, but just know this is going to be something that we want to visit with you again in the future. And it's kind of a gentleman's agreement, if you will, that allows us to go ahead and adopt the rules now, so that we don't have a blank, so that we don't have any gaps in our rule coverage is really what I'm trying to do here. So.
Thank you.
Then 781.305F, same page. The Office of the Governor suggests striking this language because it's neither prescriptive nor prescriptive, is merely informational. Next, we have page 18, 781.312A. Any person licensed as a social worker is bound by the provisions of the Act and this chapter and council rules and statutes.
Okay, thank you.
Page 29, 781.401A2A. Regarding the qualifications for licensure. For clinical master's licensure, the LMSW must have had a conferred master's degree in social work from a CSWE accredited social work program, or a doctoral degree in social work from an accredited university, and has documentation in the form of a university transcript of successfully completing. The Office of the Governor has stricken acceptable to the council because they believe this phrase creates ambiguity.
Okay, thank you.
Page 35, 781.404B4. The council approved supervisor must complete 3 hours of continuing education every biennium in supervision theory, skills, strategies, and/or evaluation. No changes at this time, but the governor's office questioned whether this is in addition to the total number or part of it.
Yeah, well, I guess we can reword that in the future to make it clear that as part of the total number of CEU hours required, 3 will be in this.
Yes.
I can just pass that information along to the governor's office as well.
Okay, thank you,
Yeah,
Derek.
I'll tell Scott.
Okay,
Page 36, 781.404B10F. A supervisor may not supervise an individual who is related within the second degree of affinity or consanguinity. Stricken is a supervisor shall not be a family member of the person being supervised. Governor's office felt the phrase family member was too vague.
Does affinity include stepchildren or adopted would definitely be. What about, steps or?
No, I don't think stepchildren are going to be included in affinity because it's relation by marriage. A step parent wouldn't have any legal authority really over a stepchild unless the order allowed it.
Right. Okay.
thank you.
Page 37, 781.404B10Q. All council-approved supervisors shall have taken a council-approved supervision training course by January 1st, 2014, in order to renew council-approved supervisor status. The council recognizes that many licensees have had little, if any, formal education about supervision theories, strategies, problem solving, and accountability, particularly LBSWs who may supervise licensees toward the IPR. Though some supervisors have functioned as employment supervisors for some time and have acquired practical knowledge, their practical supervision skills may be focused in one practice area and may not include current skills in various supervision methods or familiarity with emerging supervisory theories, strategies, and regulations. Therefore, the council values high-quality, contemporary, multimodality supervision training to ensure that all supervisors have refreshed their supervisory skills and knowledge in order to help supervisees practice safely and effectively. Governor's office recommends repealing this provision.
Sorry.
Daryl, do you have more background on the reasoning of this?
The general counsels, the attorneys at the governor's office, they don't like to see statements that are more informational or more background in nature. They want the language to either be prescriptive or proscriptive. In other words, thou shalt do this or thou shalt not do it. They don't like language in there that kind of explains why we're doing something. That's not what the law is for, according to them.
So would removing everything after the first sentence meet that requirement for them?
Yeah, I think so.
Is that something we can propose today, or we will have to send back to them?
No, you can propose that today.
Okay.
Write that down.
Okay.
Okay, Alice, what's the next page?
Page 37, 781.404B11C. I'm sorry, that's page 38. Page 38, 781.404B11C. Starting, supervision shall occur in proportion to the number of hours. Further down, no more than 10 hours of supervision may be counted in any 1 month or 30-day period as appropriate towards satisfying minimum requirements for licensure or specialty recognition. Governor's office recommends repealing this provision.
So, Tim, I had a question here on this one.
Sure.
In essence, an individual seeking the LCSW has to complete 100 supervised hours. It seems this provision is there to spread that out over the total 3,000 hours. If we take this out, someone could feasibly do all their hours in a month or two and then have a year and a half of unsupervised practice.
Correct.
So
So
I'm
Daryl-
concerned about that.
Yeah, it is concerning. So Daryl, with this kind of concern for us, do we just need to restate that back to them and give them an explanation? Maybe they're not understanding why it's there.
Yeah, I think it's just a matter of what you just explained it on the record in an open meeting. So I think that's fine.
Okay.
It's a matter of not understanding why that is the way it is. But I mean, I see what you're getting at now.
Thank you, Brian, for bringing that up.
Next,
Okay.
we have page 40 in 781.405, application for licensure. Oh, it appears it's a typo.
Yeah.
All right, next we have page 42, 781.411F. Should the applicant pass the examination, the council will issue the license or specialty recognition. A temporary license holder who has passed the licensing examination continues to be temporarily licensed until the council issues a regular license or the temporary license expires.
Okay.
So it seems like a non-substantive change. Page 48, 781.803. So it looks like in sections 2 through 4, the term of termination has changed to suspension. Number 2, level 2, extended suspension of license. These violations involve less misconduct, harm, or need for deterrence than level 1 violations, but require suspension of the licensure for a period of not less than 1 year. Level 3, moderate suspension of license. These violations involve less misconduct, harm, or need for deterrence than level 2, but require suspension of licensure for some period of time. Level 4, probated suspension. These violations do not involve enough harm, misconduct, or need for deterrence to warrant suspension of licensure, yet are severe enough to warrant monitoring of the licensee to ensure future compliance.
Okay.
And pages 50 through 52 in section 781.805 is an attached graphic. That is the penalty matrix. It looks like near the bottom, engage in activities 2 personal needs was changed to 4, so not substantive. The next page 51 under level 4 probated suspension, refusing to serve a client based solely on the basis of prohibited discrimination. It looks like the board is requested to provide some clarification there.
No, that's just the rationale for why the governor's office is doing that. Why
Oh,
it's
I see.
recommending that change.
Gotcha.
Okay, sorry. Then changing exploit to exploiting, enter to entering, borrowing, lending. These are not substantive changes. Let's see. Right, so nothing substantive in the penalty matrix.
If we go back to the part about clarification for the word prohibitive, if we referred back to the section that defined discrimination, would that be helpful, Daryl? Or is there something particular you think they would be more palatable for them?
Well, the addition of the word prohibited is what they had recommended.
Oh,
I don't,
so
I don't,
put
I
it
don't,
in
yeah, they put that in there.
Okay.
Because you've already got a rule that defines what you can't do, the thou
Right.
shalt nots.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
So I think that's it.
The only other one, Alice, was that one that I had sent out late on Friday,
Oh, okay.
change to the code of, I think it's the code of conduct A1, that supplemental.
Yes.
Let me pull that up.
So as Daryl mentioned, there was an email that was sent on Friday with a Word document. It also had the index attached in that email, and it's 781.301 Code of Conduct. And it looks like since there's already language in the occupations code in 505.451, the governor's office suggested taking out a section.
Taking out some of the terms. Now, I'll tell y'all, I also ran this by Patrick and we ran this by, kind of got an informal opinion from the AG on this as well to see what they said. And they did concur. They were like, yeah, your rule needs to match what the statute is.
So basically, we need to just restate it in the highlighted yellow parts, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. If you just make these changes right here, then this rule then comports with what the statute says.
Okay. Okay. Questions, concerns from the social work board members? Anything you'd like clarified or thoughts or issues you might have?
I don't have any.
If not, is there a motion to accept the items in the index to changes suggested by the Office of the Governors minus 781.404B 10Q, which would leave the first sentence and redact the rest of that item, and 781.404B 11C, leaving that in place, and then accepting also the addition of the 781.301 Code of Conduct changes.
And Chair Brown, we also in this motion, because what you're recommending is you're recommending that the council adopt this rules package with these changes.
Okay.
One of the things we also need to do is we need to withdraw 781.420 from this rules package. I need y'all to send that recommendation up, because immediately after we're done right here, you're going to then repropose a new version of that.
Okay.
So that would be bundled up in this same motion as well.
Okay. Then I amend my request for a motion to reflect Daryl's input.
Chair Brown, this is Brian Brumley. I make a motion to accept as described the motion on the floor.
I second it.
Okay, further discussion? If not, Alice, do you mind to call the roll to get the vote, please?
Certainly. Chair Tim Brown,
Aye.
Brian Brumley,
Aye.
Megan Graham,
Aye.
Ben Morris,
Aye.
Martha Mosier,
Aye.
Audrey Ramsbacher.
Aye.
You have a unanimous vote.
Thank you. Okay. And then Daryl, do you want us to go ahead and propose the new language in the 781.420?
Yes, sir, please.
Do you have that to pull it up to let everyone see?
Working on it right now.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Can everybody see it now?
Yes.
Give you a little background on this. This is a rule that was actually developed by Chair Smotherman's board. it's a rule that I think you're probably going to see. Basically, all the boards really need to adopt a similar rule like this, so that we have some uniformity. That's one of the things I know the governor's office wants to see, is some uniformity in this particular area. I'll tell y'all right now, they're okay with us moving forward with this, but this provision right here, I've had some discussions lately with them on that. That at some point in the future, I'm just giving you a heads up. It's nothing we need to do right now. But just as a heads up, this may be something we have to revisit again in the future. So, but again, we're good to go right now.
Okay. Any questions from the social work board members? Concerns, thoughts? If not, is there a proposal to approve the new 781.420 to go forward to the BHIC for approval?
I make a motion to move forward.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, further discussion? If not, Alice, do you mind to call roll for the vote, please?
Chair Tim Brown,
Aye.
Brian Brumley,
Aye.
Megan Graham,
Aye.
Ben Morris,
Aye.
Martha Mosier,
Aye.
Audrey Ramsbacher.
Aye.
You have a unanimous vote.
Okay, thank you very much. Daryl, do you mind to drive us through the discussion regarding the repeal of the requirements to submit a supervisory plan prior to starting supervision?
Sure. I'll pull those rules up there in case anybody wants to talk about them. Okay. Where we're at on this is when the council took over regulatory authority over the social work, administering the licensure and enforcement on the Social Work Practice Act on September 1st, one of the things that we were immediately confronted with was the volume of basically the backlog that we're all looking at. So we started looking at it. Of course, we started looking at it before September 1st. And one of the areas that we identified as being problematic in dealing with the backlog is the requirement that applicants are required to submit and receive approval of their supervision plans prior to that supervised experience being acceptable. Without beating a dead horse, the Social Work Board visited about this issue at a special meeting that Chair Brown had called. The board agreed that yes, we need to develop rules that still require a supervision plan. The supervisee and the supervisor, you still have to have them, folks. So don't think that what we're talking about today is doing away with them, because that's not what we're talking about. You still have to have it, but you don't have to submit it to the council or the board ahead of time and get approval before you undertake that supervision or complete the supervision. What you're going to do is you're going to hang on to that and you're going to attach it to your verification form when you submit your application for licensure in the end, so that we won't have this constant trickle of documents coming in that we have to review. Right now, you'd have to look on our website. I've got a chart that shows where we're at on reviewing the supervision plans, and it's a good ways back. So this will go a long way towards helping us. This takes a lot of man hours, and this is something that we won't have to focus those man hours on any longer. We can then take that time and apply it and direct it towards actually processing applications rather than reviewing these plans. So that's where we're at. What Patrick and I did after the Social Work Board meeting, I say we, it was more Patrick. I can't really claim any of the work here, but Patrick went through the rules, figured out everywhere where we listed supervision plans, and we're now tweaking those rules, either pulling it out or tweaking it so that it makes it clear you're not submitting anything to us until the very end. We don't have to approve it until, well, we don't really have to approve them at all, but you don't have to submit anything till the very end. So that's what these rules do. That's what we think they do as staff. So I guess we're here to see what you guys think they do as the board members. And I'll be happy, Patrick and I can answer any questions if anybody has any.
Daryl, just for clarification, are we considering this a permanent change, or just as long as we're under a governor appointed crisis? Or
This would be a permanent rule change that we're doing.
and at one point we had talked about not that the supervision plan had to be approved up front, but that something came to the licensing unit to notify them that the supervision plan was started.
I don't remember that.
And I had that discussion several times with several different individuals concerned that not that we have to have the plan approved at the beginning, but somehow it was acknowledged that a plan was started. So there wouldn't be just all of a sudden individuals, and I'm not saying everyone will do this, but we've seen some instances of this in the past. People just pop up and say, oh, by the way, I've done all my hours and here's all my forms. That was my only hesitation with this. Everything else I'm comfortable with, but just some kind of acknowledgement or tickle in the system that a plan had started. Those are my only thoughts. Others' thoughts with the social work board?
Kim, isn't there still the requirement that they've got to submit the application for it? And isn't that where that would be stated when that would start?
Right, that's my thought, if that's true, and I was hoping that was true, that's why I brought it up.
Okay. Alice, would that still be true? You may be the best one to answer that question.
So the upgrade application is not received until the end of supervision, until the supervisee has completed their 24-month requirement. Because an application is only good for 12 months and the supervision requirements are 24 months. So if you submit it at the beginning, your app will expire before you're finished. So I don't recall any details about having the supervisee submit anything to the licensing board at the beginning of supervision. My understanding of the board's conversations about it is that the supervisor and the supervisee had to have something on file and maintained at the beginning of supervision, but that wasn't submitted to the licensing office.
So the licensing office will not get anything until it is completed.
Correct.
That's my understanding.
Is that similar with like LPCs?
Tim, can you answer that for us? Tim Spear?
Can you hear me?
You can.
Oh, wow. The LPCs have it a little bit different. They submit a what's called a supervisor agreement form in the beginning, and then at the end they submit their verification. They're different in that supervision. That supervisor agreement form is part of their application for license. So it's a completely different animal than the clinical supervision, which is something that a licensee, somebody who's already a licensee, has to get. So it's a pretty different animal when you compare the two.
Okay.
Am I allowed to ask a question if I'm on the other board?
I have no problem with that.
I wondered if ASW, well, I'm just not sure. Don't laugh, Daryl. Can ASWB, program a question that says, date started on this sort of thing, or is the program already developed?
This isn't something that we're working with ASWB to handle. ASWB is just handling the exam eligibility
Got it.
review process for us.
Other thoughts or questions from the social work board members?
I guess, just to kind of make sure I understand where we're at, this would really be removing the board from any type of oversight or start dates of it. Just totally approving it, making sure everything is in and cleared to sit for the examination at the end of the supervision. So it's opening that doorway without the board having a start date for it. Is that correct?
Yeah, you're not checking it on the front end.
Right. It's just all being done on the back end, and
Correct.
it's putting that responsibility to that board approved supervisor to ensure that it's been started and it has gone the path that it should in order to ensure that this person is competent to, and ready for that examination process, and letting them have that responsibility.
Correct.
Okay. If there are not other comments, questions, or concerns, is there a motion?
I will go ahead and make the motion to accept this change.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, further discussion? If not, Alice, will you call the roll for the vote?
Chair Tim Brown,
Aye.
Brian Brumley,
Yes.
Megan Graham,
Yes.
Ben Morris,
Yes.
Martha Mosier,
Aye.
Audrey Ramsbacher.
Yes. Aye.
It is unanimous.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Okay, I believe that is everything for the social work side. So Chair Kinseko, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank
Chair
you,
Brandt,
Tim.
I think you have, oh, no, I'm sorry. Yeah, the scheduling of your meeting, that's going to be after public comment, I guess. I'm sorry.
That's okay. We're all learning. It's a new way.
Thank you, Chair Brown. Sure appreciate it and the hard work of your board. I think that we've made some good progress with regard to licensing social workers, and I'm pleased to hear it. Daryl, I have the next item that I see on the agenda is public comments. Is that right, or have I missed something?
No, ma'am. You must be looking at an early draft copy of the agenda.
Okay, then I'm going to rely on you to either share the agenda or to guide us through it, because that's the copy I printed. Sorry.
Okay. Stand by just a second.
Uh-oh, what was that?
Patrick's in trouble, it sounds like, over there.
Oh, again.
I knew I should have run a background check on him. Here we go, Madam Chair.
Okay. Well, this is the same one I have. So we're on item 3, is that right?
Yes, ma'am. You're on
Okay,
3A.
good. I guess I did do the right thing. So we'd like to overall consider and adopt the different rule changes that the Social Worker Examiner Board have just approved. Daryl, am I correct in that we can take them all at the same time? Maybe pulling some out if board members have a concern? And would that be appropriate, or would you prefer that we take it by letter item?
I would say you can handle all of 3A in one motion, and then we'll do 3B in a separate motion. Each A, B, and C in a separate motion.
And is the recommendation normally that we make a motion to approve and discussion follows, or is that the correct procedure?
You can do it that way, or you can, if there's any discussion on, we're on 3A now. If there's any discussion, let's have it now, and then if not, I'll kind of articulate a motion, and you can choose to use it or not use it.
Well, I'll follow the good example set by, as he said, used by the different members of the Social Work Board. I hadn't had the brains to do that just yet. So let's look at rulemaking A, the consideration of the changes made by the social work board. Are there any concerns, or is there any discussion in this regard? Does everyone have the document, or would you like to see it on Daryl's screen?
It's on the screen, I think.
No? Okay.
So I would make a motion to accept 3A.
I second that motion.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? If there's no discussion, let's take this to a vote, and I will ask Brenda. Brenda, will you take each vote individually, please?
Yes,
And leave
ma'am.
me to the end.
Okay. Go ahead. Chair Conseco,
4.
Dr. Abraham,
Aye.
Mr. Belimowicz,
Aye.
Mr. Brown,
Aye.
Dr. Fletcher,
Aye.
Mr. Francis, Mr. Morris,
Aye.
Mrs. Smotherman.
Aye.
Mr. Francis is on mute, in case you want to try to unmute him first. I guess.
George, your screen is frozen and we can't hear you.
I am 4.
There you are.
Okay, it's unanimous.
Thank you. Item 3B, the new rules regarding licensing of persons with criminal convictions. Is there any discussion? If not, may I have a motion to approve it as submitted?
I make a motion to approve it as submitted.
Thank you, Dr. Abraham.
I'll second that.
Thank you. All in favor? Oh, is there any discussion? All in favor?
It's a great rule.
I think it is a great rule too. Sounds like unanimous consent, but let's go ahead and do the roll call. Brenda, will you take that for us?
Yes, Chair Conseco,
4.
Dr. Abraham,
Aye.
Mr. Belimowicz,
Aye.
Mr. Brown,
Aye.
Dr. Fletcher,
Aye.
Mr. Francis,
Aye.
Mr. Morris,
Aye.
Mrs. Smotherman.
Aye.
It's unanimous.
Thanks so much, everybody. We're just moving this along. The next one is the intent to repeal the supervision plans, item 3C. Any discussion before we call for a vote? Okay, hearing none, may I have a motion to approve as submitted by the social work board, licensing
I
board?
make a motion that we approve the language as submitted by the social work board.
Thank you.
Second.
All in favor? Oh, sorry. Thank you, Susan and John. And Brenda, you want to call again?
Yes, ma'am. Chair Conseco,
4.
Dr. Abraham,
Aye.
Mr. Belimowicz,
Aye.
Mr. Brown,
Aye.
Dr. Fletcher,
Aye.
Mr. Francis,
Aye.
Mr. Morris,
Aye.
Mrs. Smotherman.
Aye.
It's unanimous.
Thanks so much. That was fast and easy. If there's no other discussion, then I think that we should move forward with public comments. Daryl, I believe we're taking them at using the question and answer sheet, or do you have another way that you want to, I don't know if people have submitted anything.
Well, no, I haven't received any written public comments
Right.
unless they've come in just the past few minutes here.
Looks like we have
No.
a number of questions on the question and answer. I'm not sure if that's.
Well, the way we handle public comments in the past is I'll ask people, if you've got a public comment that you would like to make and you're online, I need you to use the raise hand feature. We will then go down the list of all the individuals that have had their hands raised, and we'll let you speak for 3 minutes or I'm assuming that's what the chairs want to allow. This is going to be kind of a joint public comment session. So you're commenting on both the social work board and the council's work here today. Once we're done with the individuals that have their hands raised, I'll then proceed down the phone callers who are online to see if they have any public comment, because they can't do the raise hand feature.
Thank you. So for those of you who are on Zoom, if you look at the chat box on the right, you'll see 3 little dialogue boxes. So if you check raise hand, then Daryl will take it from there.
Okay, the first individual up is Mr. Will Francis.
Thank you.
Will, can you hear us?
Yes, can you all hear me?
Yes, sir.
My name is Will Francis, and I'm the Executive Director for the National Association of Social Workers Texas Chapter, and I appreciate you all meeting today, going over the rules and the opportunity to comment. My first comment is on the removal of sexual orientation and gender identity from the Code of Conduct. This is incredibly disheartening. Social workers in Texas were one of the first mental health professional groups to actually have a Code of Conduct. Number 1 in the Code of Conduct protects very important things, which says very clearly race, color, religion, national origin, disability, sexual orientation, gender identity and expression, or political affiliation. This was put in number 1 for a reason. It was established by the board through their work, and to have governor's comments recommend that it be removed, and that be done in such a way that outside stakeholders did not have an opportunity to give input on that is incredibly worrisome. Per Alice's comments, this was received in an email on Friday and then decided essentially by the group today. And I think that really is worrisome. I do not think something as important to a profession as the Code of Conduct, which really has such a long history in social work, should be removed that way. And then I would like to say that discussion about putting a time period on the length of time that a social worker can have a relationship with a past client is concerning as well. This is another bedrock of social work. It's something that has been with our profession for a long time. And we hope that this is allowed public comment. And then lastly, I would like to say that I just very much appreciate the work on the supervisor. We hope that the training is kept in place. It looks like that will be in place. Very much agree with Brian Brumley's discussions about the 10 hours and why that's important, and we appreciate all the work done with supervision. But I would recommend that thought be put into placing sexual identity and gender orientation back in the Code of Conduct. Thank you.
Thank you. Daryl, do we have anybody else?
Yes, ma'am. Next up is Sandra Martin. Ms. Martin, do you have any public comments you'd like to give?
Yes, I do. They'll be brief. I am the chair of a new committee, Governmental Liaison Committee for Christian Counselors of Texas. We do have social workers who will be monitoring and just being with your board in the future on Friday meetings. I'll be on other days. Just wanted to express our appreciation for all that you're doing. Our committee is part of Christian Counselors of Texas, if I haven't said that before. Very appreciative of what you've done today, of everything that's happened today, and we appreciate most especially your hard work that comes in between meetings. We know that's volunteer. We know that is hard work. We're thankful for your willingness to share. We appreciate you, and that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Ms. Rodriguez, do you have public comments you'd like to give?
Hi, good afternoon. Yes, I do. So this is more for comments, not so much questions.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I just wanted to make a comment. Because I'm a little bit confused under one of the statutes. When a license is inactive, it's saying that no continuing education is required while a license is inactive. However, in another section down below, it says to return an inactive license to active status, the licensee must submit proof of completion of continuing education for the licensee's current 2-year renewal period. It's a little confusing to me because it seems like a contradiction, so I'm not necessarily sure which one to follow.
Neither the council nor the board can respond to questions right now because this is a public comment period. It's not a Q&A, and that issue is not on the agenda, so we can't talk about it. But what I can tell you is what you need to do is look on the Contact Us webpage, the council's webpage. That question is something you're going to want to submit to the general at bhec.texas.gov email address. That's where you need to submit those types of questions.
The general one you said?
Yeah, because what you're talking about is a rules question. You've got a question about a rule, how that rule operates.
Okay.
So send it to that email address.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Looking at Robin. I'm sorry, there's no last name on it. Robin, do you have public comments you'd like to give?
Yes, can you hear me?
I can. If you would state your full name for us, please.
Robin Gould.
Okay.
I'm concerned. I know there's been a lot of talk about the backlog, and I hear that a lot is going on, but I haven't seen any motion in it, and I have not seen any emotional movement as this relates to other social workers that I'm aware with that's looking to see what's going on. I have been receiving notification stating that this change is supposed to happen, how it got moved over to Texas Behavioral Health Executive Council, that I put in an application December 19, 2019, and I have yet to receive anything. I've called and I have emailed, and it is unacceptable. So I'm looking to see what you all are willing to do and are going to do to correct this, because I know I'm not the only person. I do have my question in more detail in the Q&A, but I wanted to make sure that you all are understanding 2019, December, I've heard nothing, not an email, and I have emailed and I have called. And I'm sure I'm not the only person who had plans of what I was going to do, and it's almost a year. And to have no one to turn to, because this board is who I turn to, and I have been extremely let down. It's hurtful. And I've even considered moving to another state just so I can get with a better board, because this is ridiculous. I'm not even looking to get my supervision hours. I'm just trying to look to get licensed with my MSW, and I can't even get that part. No notification stating that my background has been cleared. It's extremely disappointing.
Normally, we don't respond to this, but I'm going to. Ms. Gold, we are aware of the backlog. We were made aware of it, and we have been preparing to tackle it. We took actual sort of authority over this beginning September 1st. So we're, 30, 40 days in it. We've had folks volunteer. You might have heard me talk about Mr. Brown spending his week there. Our staff is right on top of this. We have submitted an LAR asking for more staff to help tackle it. We inherited this problem, and it is at the top of our minds whenever we speak privately, whenever we communicate with Daryl and his staff. This is the top concern that we have. And so I can tell you that what has happened to you is I can't answer why it's happened, but it's certainly something that we are taking very seriously, and you will hear from us. It is at the top of our working agenda.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, this is Board Member Francis. Please forgive me, and I know that it's probably out of process. But I know that our executive director has put together an action item of many different things. Maybe he might be able to speak to a couple of those things that would help people understand what the actions are behind the scenes that are trying to alleviate these problems, please.
I think that would be terrific. Daryl, can you tell us the top 5 things that we're doing right now to tackle this issue? I know
Okay.
there's a list of about 20, but top 5 things that are going to move things along the fastest.
Probably the biggest thing you just did here today. You just voted to propose a rule change whereby staff are no longer going to have to receive, sort, and vet these hundreds, and I do mean hundreds, of supervision plans. In other words, staff aren't going to be using their time to review and vet that. They're now going to be able to actually process the applications like that young lady's. It allows you to focus your efforts in a much more needed area. We're also changing it so that the board no longer approves the exam requests that come in. I think we get roughly 2,500 a year. That will be offloaded to ASWB. They will be responsible for that. They'll be using our rules. We'll still be the ones that issues the license and vets the actual application. But that's another significant workload that has been offloaded. We're also gearing up to move towards an online application system where there won't be any more paper applications accepted, and people won't have to wonder, did they receive my transcript, or well, did they receive my application? Did they receive my verification forms? Because they will be the ones that upload it. They will be able to see what they sent us and when it was received. So those are probably the big 3. There are some smaller things that we're doing as well, but those are the big 3 items that you're going to see that I think are going to make the biggest impact on people's lives.
Thank you, Daryl. And if I'm not mistaken, we're taking the ones who've been waiting the longest and working our way backwards from there. Is that right?
Yeah, we're actually using a pincer approach. We've got, because the way BHEC handles processes applications is very different from how HHSC handled it. The new staff that we have hired, we have trained them only under BHEC's method, and they are actually processing the new applications as they come in. That's why when you look on that chart, and Ms. Gould, what you need to do is there's a chart on our applying for licensure and timelines webpage. Anybody that's listening, you can go to that chart and that will tell you the date of new applications that staff are working on. If you look at that, you can see we're actually not in a backlog on new applications. The staff are actually keeping up with the amount of the applications that are coming in since September 1st. Where the backlog exists is on the people that had applied with HHSC and they had some sort of deficiency or they didn't send everything in. It's now that application has been reviewed, we now have to go back and see, did they submit what they were supposed to? And that is where a massive backlog still exists. I don't have that on the chart because it's impossible for me to tell you what date we're working on because it could be anywhere within a year time frame. It could be as much as 364 days back, or it could just be, a month or 2 ago. So there's no way for me to pinpoint where in that deficiency backlog staff are working because they just kind of work it as it comes up. But anyway, that's how I would answer that.
Thank you. And thanks, George, for that question. Appreciate it.
Ms. Finch, did you have public comments you'd like to give?
Yes, this is Dr. Janet Finch. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Loud and clear.
Great. I've been an LCSW supervisor for over 20 years in the state of Texas. I have supervised probably 100 people through the process. And the last 2 years have been wicked. I want to applaud BHEC and the licensing office for the changes that were made, because I'm a very competent supervisor. I'm faculty at UT Arlington and have been for many years. I am very much a promoter of the social work profession. We need more LCSWs out there who have proper supervision and training. The backlog of the supervision plans has been awful, and I'm so glad we have a plan moving forward. I do have a comment about the retroactive plans that are in there. I have some people that have plans that are over a year old that were submitted. And I'm wondering how those will be processed because we didn't discuss anything that was retroactive. It does involve many of my supervisees, and I did want to bring that to your attention. I am so excited about the new changes, and I will do my very, very best to do an excellent job with it.
Thank you, Dr. Francis.
I will say, because that's a topic that is on the agenda, let me just say real quick, the rule will be retroactive to encompass all the plans that have been submitted and haven't yet been reviewed as well. So if you're listening out there and you have submitted a supervision plan, now remember, this rule still has to be adopted, which means it has to go out for public comment, set 30 days. Then it has to come back. We'll probably have to have another joint session like we're having here today, where it will then be reviewed. Public comment will be reviewed by the social work board and then recommended up to the council for adoption. But assuming all of that takes place, this rule will encompass all the plans that are sitting on the board's desk or the council's desk right now, awaiting review or what, I think probably what we're going to do is we'll just scan the plans in that we have and attach them to that person's license file in our database system. And then when the day comes, when they submit their verification form, we already have the supervision plan. They wouldn't have to attach it because we would already have it. But for those folks going forward who don't have a supervision plan on file with us, they would just need to hold on to it themselves. I don't want to be in the business of mailing this stuff back to people because it's going to get lost in the mail. So I think it's just easier if I just hopefully use some volunteers, scan this stuff in.
Okay.
And then we'll have it on hand. So that's my plan. That's what I'm.
Thank you, Mr. Spinks, and thank you, Mr. Brown, for spending all your time and working on the revisions. You have my heartfelt thanks.
Thank you, ma'am.
May I just ask for some clarification on something that Mr. Spinks said for the purpose of those who are listening? While it sounds on the surface like the people who are currently applying for licensure in social work, that they're going to have a very minimal problem with their license application going forward. And I know the people who are frustrated that it feels to them that and it has been almost a year that since they started the process, as if there's the backlog is going to continue to create an additional hardship as everything gets caught up. And part of what I hear the frustration is the fact that they haven't gotten a response when they've tried to get an update. And it's like crickets to them is what I'm hearing. And I can appreciate that, as I think everyone else can too. So what is the expectation beyond this meeting today of where people will know exactly kind of where the process is and what they can expect? Because I know on that page on the website, which I want to applaud you, Mr. Spinks, it's wonderful to talk about where we are based on things. And I know today we're pointing people to that page, and I would encourage you to do it again. And maybe if we can even screen share that at some point so people know what we're talking about, because I think that's a real source of really good information. And I want to make sure that people know that they can keep returning to that. But I'm hearing the frustration not only with the backlog, but the lack of communication to know what the status is. So I just want to give Mr. Spinks an opportunity to respond to that in the interest of transparency.
Let me be very candid. The amount of status requests we get and requests just of people asking, hey, did you get my stuff, is overwhelming. We cannot respond to all of that in process. I hate to be the bad guy here, but that's why we had to implement the auto reply. We get so many emails asking for status updates and did you get my stuff, that to answer all of those, we would not be able to process a single thing if we spent all day answering those emails. So we had to create the auto reply and create the chart. Now the chart will provide everybody that has renewed with us at September 1st and going forward, any new applications received by the council, that's going to tell you where you're at in the queue. In other words, are they reviewing applications received around the same time that I mailed mine in or not? How far out? You'll know how long to wait. If you're one of the individuals who received a deficiency notice from HHSC back pre-9/1, September 1st, I don't have any way to tell you where you're at in the queue. What I am doing though is I'm having the what I call the veteran staff from HHSC, the ones that are familiar with how HHSC process things, they're working on those applications from the backside. So it's like we said a moment ago, I've got a pincer movement going. I've got the new staff that BHEC has hired. They're handling the new stuff that comes in so that the backlog doesn't continue to grow. Then I've got the veteran staff. They're attacking it from the oldest moving forward. So we're kind of moving towards the middle here. That's the best way. Where you fall in there, there's no way I can't put a chart on the website and tell you that. And I can't afford to have my staff taking off and answering the thousands of emails we get over a week to explain to people this is where you're at, because if I do that, I'm cutting my own throat, and I'm shooting everybody else in the foot too whenever I do it. So it's just the cold hard reality of I've got too many emails coming in and not enough bodies to answer them. So what I've chosen to do is prioritize actually doing the work versus responding to the status updates. Don't mean that to sound cold and direct, but that's just the way it is.
I appreciate it. I think it's transparent because I heard the comment of, I'm not the only one, there's hundreds. We know that. And that's what that's the priority, is to get the applications moving. And yet I can appreciate the concern that nobody hears them, that there's a problem. So I appreciate the extra explanation.
And I can assure everybody out there, we hear you, because I see a lot of those emails. I spend a lot of my Friday nights reading those emails. Up until probably 2 weeks ago, I can tell you that I've read the vast majority of emails that come into that licensing email address. Here lately, I just hadn't had as much time to do it, having to focus on the LAR and whatnot. But we are fully aware of the problem. I do not mean to say that you are wrong or that you got every right to be mad. Plain and simple, you do. I'd be ticked off too. And that kind of motivates that motivates us a lot, because we'd be ticked off as well, just to be candid. So
I had taken some notes, and this is a good time to share those as a general statement to everybody who's commented publicly for all the emails that have come in. Here's my notes. We hear you. Your voice matters, and the fact that you're here also telling us what's going on in this forum is incredibly valuable, and it's appreciated. And obviously we don't like hearing it. No one likes hearing it. No one likes being in this position. But we hear you, and there's not much else more important to us right now. Because frankly, there's not any person that this agency deals with that's really more important than an applicant waiting to go practice in the mental health field in Texas. So that is not lost on us at all. I just want to echo everything everyone has already said. So.
But we will soon have a request before the legislature asking for increased staff to move this along faster. So if you want to write your legislator, go for it.
Yep. And I've posted our LAR on the website so everybody can look at it. You can download it. It's on the Forms and Publications webpage. All right. Next up is Ms. Guerra. Do you have public comments you'd like to make?
It's Guerra.
Guerra.
Yeah, you got it. You're breaking up. Gina, you're breaking up.
Hello?
There you go.
Is that better?
Much better.
Okay, sorry about that. I think that my comment just goes along with what everybody else is saying. I'm the director of finance and HR for a counseling center, and it's been hard getting the licensure for some of our counselors who we desperately need to serve our community. So just being on here and listening to what's going on and how y'all are proceeding, especially with the communication, that's been the toughest challenge for us, an employer, to be able to verify licensure. That's been almost impossible. And then also as a license holder myself, trying to get back into the practice, it's been a long wait. So being on here, listening to how y'all are making the movement forward and tackling the problem will be good information that I could provide to my board members for our counseling center and some of the licensees that we're still waiting on to get their notifications so they could come practice in our center.
Thank you,
So
Ms.
I
Gill.
thank y'all for that information for today.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Ms. Escobedo.
Ms. Escobedo? You have public comments you'd like to make?
She's on mute. She needs to unmute. There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Well, I've heard a lot on what you answered, Ms. Robin. But my question still is, how do I know for a fact that they have all my documentation? I mean, I'm hearing her, she applies in December. That kind of gives me hope because I applied in May 2020 for my license in Master Social Work. So is there absolutely nothing that I can go check, see where my status is? If you guys can even answer an email, not even acknowledge.
Ma'am, we can't hear you. Ma'am.
Hello?
Okay, we can hear you a little bit better now, but you faded away.
How can I know for sure that my documentation is in? I can wait. I don't have a problem with waiting. I understand about the backlog. But just to know that everything is in.
You'll have to email the licensing@bhec.texas.gov email address.
All right, what is that email? Because I have emailed before and I haven't received any reply.
Ma'am, that's the only email address we have, and it's because we receive so many is why you haven't received a reply. Staff are answering them as they get to them, as they can. But that's the only email address you can send it to.
Which is what email? Do you know the email? Can you confirm?
Yes, ma'am, I just gave it to you. Licensing. I tell you what, go to the Contact Us webpage on the council's website, and it's listed there.
I have. I emailed a lot of emails.
Okay, well, don't spam all of our emails. Don't send the same email to all the other email addresses because
well, I don't have a choice. I don't have any.
Okay, well, what I'm telling you is that's adding to the problem. I need people to stop doing that. Focus, just send your email to the licensing, and as soon as we get to it.
You want people to stop asking about what is interesting or important to me?
No, ma'am. What I'm saying is you need to direct it to the correct email address.
Okay, then you give me the correct email address.
Okay, it's licensing@bhec, BHEC .texas spelled out .gov.
Give me the initials again, please, after the @
B as in boy, H as in Hector, E as in Edward, C as in Charlie.
Okay. And what do? Do they acknowledge? They can check if my forms are in?
Yeah, when staff get to it, they'll answer your question and let you know what we have or what we're missing.
Okay. I'll go ahead and send them my application, see if that helps them.
Okay.
My application number.
Okay. All right.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Ms. Reed, do you have public comments you would like to make?
Am I unmuted now?
You are.
I got a pop-up that told me how to do that. Thanks. My name is Norma Reed. I'm from El Paso. I'm a licensed clinical social worker approved supervisor. I want you to know that I've been a social worker in Texas before it was a regulated profession. I have been a supervisor probably for 30 years. I have now had 2 of the 40-hour approved supervision courses. I took the second one last year because it was in El Paso and I wanted to support CEU events being in El Paso. So I'm telling you this because my primary goal in being here is around supervision. And I'm gonna put that to the side for a moment because I do want to thank you for your work in addressing the backlog. And I also appreciate you stepping out of the usual agenda and giving information to the two people who have extreme situations they're dealing with. So thank you very much for that. The other thing I want to mention before I go on to the supervision issue is that I also want to support Mr. Francis from NASW in that remove, and I think someone else mentioned this as well, is that removing an area of discrimination that social workers have fought hard for generations and decades, about removing discrimination towards sexual orientation and sexual identity. You're going to have an uprising, and I will be a part of that. So going forth, so my concern about the supervision rule is, and I gave you the information about the time I've been a supervisor, the number of courses I've taken. I have several supervisees currently that are caught up in the backlog. I can appreciate all of that. In theory, I support the plan to not have the initial supervision plan approved by the board. My concern is that, and I saw a question asked by someone on the question and answer section in this meeting, is what if I get to the end of supervision and my supervision plan is not been approved? So I think in most cases, in most situations of most supervisees, I feel competent to say whether it's clinical or not clinical, and to go forth with that and to set an appropriate supervision plan with them. But there are some situations that it's not clear. One of my supervisees submitted a plan, I think in September of 2019. And when she finally heard, there was some questions about whether or not that was appropriate, and they asked her for some corrective action that was needed to get a specific letter from her current, at that time, employee verifying the minimum number of clinical hours. She was able to get that. She's no longer working for that employee of that employer. And if she had waited until the end, that might have been of the end of the minimum 2-year period, that might have been a difficult letter for her to get. So here is my question and my suggestion. Is there anticipated any guidelines or training for supervisors about what the board is going to be looking for when they evaluate a supervision plan, when it's submitted along with the verification plan for supervision at the end of supervision? I would be more comfortable. I try to do the best job I can with my supervisees. I want them to do well. I want them to be good clinical social workers. But still, I have this concern for them. That's my primary reason for being at this board meeting.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Reed. That comment's appreciated. We'll take it into consideration.
Chair Canseco, I have a quick question as a point of clarification, and you can answer this or Daryl could. I think that I understood you to say earlier, Daryl, after we passed these rules, that they are going up for public comment. They didn't actually pass and get published today. There's still a process for public comment. Is that correct?
The proposed rules for the changes needed for the supervision plan, yes, those will be proposed. The other rules were the rules that were published in the July 17th. The social work rules package was published in the July 17th edition of the Texas Register. They will be
Okay.
adopted.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification.
Next one is Teresa Adcock. Ms. Adcock, did you have public comments you'd like to make?
I would. Thank you so much. First, I want to say thank you for all of the work. I cannot even imagine what y'all have inherited. I am a LMSW. I went through my clinical supervision and finished, was supposed to take a test for my clinical exam. Had some things happen, couldn't do it within the 1 year. When I look at your schedule on the website, there's really not any acknowledgement of what you do for people in my situation. How are those being addressed?
Tell me again what your situation is, ma'am.
So my situation is I had a year to take the clinical exam. My 1 year expired in June of this year. I broke an arm and took the test finally in May. Did not pass by 2 points. And I cannot retake it because you have to wait 3 months after you do not pass it. So I've been trying to get a hold of somebody since May to try to get scheduled to take it again.
Pretty sure that 90 days is an ASWB thing. I don't think that's a council thing.
Yeah.
Tim, am I wrong on that?
Basically, you would need to reapply, Ms. Adcock, to be able to then be approved by ASWB to schedule for an examination time and location.
How do I reapply? Because ASWB will not talk to me without an approval from the board.
You have to reapply with the board like you did before.
Okay. All right.
Just start a new application, and then they will approve you, let ASWB know that you've been approved, and then you can schedule the time to sit for the exam with ASWB.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Right. Tracy, I'm going to butcher this. Abzug or Abzug?
You did it.
You said it perfectly right the first time. Abzug.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, that was impressive. I want to start by saying I appreciate the transparency provided us today. Like others have said, I can't imagine the work that you have in front of you. I really appreciate that y'all are taking the time to approach this and resolve this. I do also want to echo what many others have said already, that as a social worker, it's incredibly disheartening, and it's actually quite disturbing to me that the Texas State Board of Social Work Examiners has agreed today to lower our standards as it relates to discrimination towards sexual orientation and gender identity. It directly contradicts our ethics. I will go as far as saying I'm disgusted by that, and I wish something could change there. I also want to reiterate what some other folks have said. If there's no more vetting of the plans on the front end, there needs to be some assurance that this new process of reviewing a plan on the back end does not just move this problem to a different point in the licensing process. If plans are going to be reviewed and vetted, as was mentioned earlier, again, there needs to be some assurance that this person who just spent thousands of dollars on supervision over the past 2 years and lots of invested time isn't going to get to a point where they are still delayed because someone has not, from the board's end, agreed to their plan. So again, just want to reiterate that there has to be some assurance that there's a clear process in terms of what plans should look like. I've been doing supervision for a long time. I have had student interns, not interns, LMSWs who have had plans that look pretty similar because they're in a very similar position. One gets approved and one gets denied. So again, just want to reiterate and emphasize that there's got to be some clarity so we don't just shift this problem somewhere else. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Abzug. I'd like to take a moment to say that when we look at new agenda items, we will be addressing the issue of gender. I believe that Daryl made clear that the changes are reflecting the statute, and that doesn't mean that it will be ignored. We'll work together on this, and I will call for that. In fact, I may as well just call for it now. Daryl, this is something I'd like to address at the next and put on the next agenda for discussion.
Council meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Ms. Karsagi, do you have public comments you'd like to make?
Yes, I would. Can you guys hear me?
We can.
Excellent. So a little bit of confusion. I want to say thank you, of course, for allowing me to speak. You guys are really good at addressing as many concerns as you can. And I'm not even sure if I'm in the right meeting or not, because there was a little bit of confusion on the website. Are you guys still having the October 27th meeting? Because it seemed like this was kind of a merger meeting as opposed to a regular meeting. So admittedly, I was very confused. And so to everyone listening in, if this is not the right forum for this, then again, I apologize in advance. And so as usual, the thing that I'd like to address and to bring to your attention is, of course, regarding custody evaluators. And I'm actually really glad to have the opportunity to present it at a merged meeting, because I feel like that this is something that is very critical for a lot of different disciplines within the licensing field to be aware of, is because domestic violence has such long overreaches, and since custody evaluations typically completely ignore domestic violence. And that's obviously something that's of concern. A specific thing that I wanted to bring up was, I forgot who it was specifically who mentioned this, but someone had brought up, that whenever there is a domestic violence concern and that the child abuse is actively ongoing because the abuser gains sole custody, that person should, of course, direct their concerns to CPS and the police and agencies of that nature. And I'm really glad that person mentioned that, because that helps me to understand, I guess, kind of where we're missing each other in terms of being able to explain that a custody evaluation, especially a biased one, goes so far beyond the courtroom. Should it? No. Does it? Yes. And this is a hallmarker of domestic violence by proxy. The proxy not only being the court, but being the custody evaluation and the custody evaluator as well. A lot of times, a fraudulent custody evaluation can have a devastating impact on reputation, credibility, and all other things. And victims are left to carry this burden. And that is something that I want to point out to you guys. I know that you're handling complaints, that there is a backlog of complaints, that we've spoken about this many times. And I assure you, we will continue to speak out, because this is a tremendously large concern. This is something that has got to be addressed. I actually did speak with Child Protective Services. I went all the way up to a 4th level supervisor. And if anyone is interested, I can get you the name and contact information of that individual. And they confirmed to me that that is what is being used as evidence to keep my children in that abusive situation. That custody evaluation is continuing to haunt my children as well as to haunt myself. It was a clearly biased one. Obviously, we're not all against all custody evaluators, but the ones that have committed serious ethical crimes need to be stopped. And we would ask you to take action. We would ask you to hold them accountable. That's something that has not been done to date. And as members of the public, we're calling on that. Thank you so much.
Okay. Ms. Felderhoff, do you have public comments you'd like to give?
I do. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much. First, I just want to really say thank you to everyone here. I've really appreciated, since TSVSWE has transitioned from under HHSC to under the new BHEC, how transparent the processes have been, how much information we've been given compared to our previous board situation, and how much work is being done to make sure that the backlog is addressed. I also especially want to thank Tim Brown for the work he did on his vacation time to help address the backlog. I think that's true commitment from our board chair, and I really appreciate the effort. I just wanted to echo some of the sentiments that have already been shared around gender identity and sexual orientation, especially, and I thank Chairman Canseco, did I say that right? For making sure to put that on a future meeting. But I also wanted to just pose a clarifying question, because I know Mr. Spink stated that the changes that were in the register for 30 days are already approved by the vote, but it was my understanding that that change actually came in last week based on your conversation from the governor. And so is that change approved with the others since it wasn't published in the register for 30 days? But I appreciate it being put on the agenda for a future meeting. And then I also just wanted to clarify that I know this question had been asked about, it will go out for 30 days. There will be another specially called meeting for the supervision plans to make that process fully approved. But when that happens, it was my understanding from the TSB-SWE meeting on 9/11 that the eventual goal is that we will have a way in the online system to denote that we start supervision with someone, so that that information will be on record for the board at some point in the future, versus there not ever being a process and you only getting the information at the end of the supervision hours. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, that is something we are going to work towards.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that was still the goal.
It
Thank
is.
you all very much.
Thank you, Dr. Felderhoff.
Candidly, I'd like us to get where we could get away from forms altogether and just go with what's based off of in the system.
Would be great.
Evelyn Fabian. Ms. Fabian, do you have a public comment you'd like to give?
Yes, hi, good afternoon. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, hi. So I also want to echo everyone else that, express their gratitude for taking a moment to answer, our questions and also our comments and all the hard work that you do. I just have a quick comment, and I'm not sure if this has been discussed before, but my comment is that I'm also in the same position as the others where my application is in the backlog, and it's been almost a year. And from my understanding previously, they told me that I have until October, I forgot the exact date, but until October to complete my application. Otherwise, I would be charged again and I have to reapply again. With COVID and everything else going on, I'm not sure if you guys have already considered or will consider either extending that deadline or just, waiving the fee and us having to reapply, since this is not something that's within our control either. I don't know if that has been discussed or if it could be discussed, where it's not our responsibility to pay again, since it's, it's circumstantial with everything going on.
Daryl, have we discussed that?
No, we haven't.
Let's put that one on the next agenda as well. I think that's important. Would y'all agree?
Madam Chair, if we can put a broader category that would allow us to talk about the waiving of fees and the possibility of it. I don't know if we can or cannot, but just so that we have the ability to talk about the broader topic as it applies to several of these subject matters.
Sure, the backlog extensions.
Yes, ma'am.
I think that it sounds like the public needs some clarity, and our goal is to push this through as fast as we can without sacrificing efficiency or without overlooking anything that might be wrong. I know that Chair Brown mentioned that there were a couple of applications in the backlog that he ran across that were not complete or were missing something, and we don't want to make a mistake. So I guess what I'm trying to say is we don't want to move it along fast, but do it poorly. So in order to
correct,
excellence. But I agree with you, George. I think discussing the backlog as a whole and the different steps we're doing to remedy the situation, I think it's good for folks to hear that.
I just want to make sure that we don't penalize anybody.
I agree.
For anything that has happened in terms of a time frame that's an administrative time frame versus an applicant time frame. I just want to be very careful about that distinction and how we discuss that. So thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Thanks for bringing it forward. And thanks to you, Ms. Fabian.
Okay, we're now on to the telephone callers. It looks like Ms. Graham, I had left you out somehow or another. You got knocked out of the panelist view here, but I've got you back in. All right. Caller, do you have any public comments you would like to give? Hearing none. Caller, do you have any public comments you would like to give? Caller, do you have any public comments you would like to give? Okay, hearing none. And that's it, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I know that we have a number of questions. How are those considered public comments, or how are we
They are
doing?
not. They are not.
So we'll just answer that. Okay.
Well, we have 2 more people that just raised their hands.
Okay.
Miss Arlette, do you have public comments you would like to give?
I sure do. Thank you. My name is Hannah Arlette, and I'm a licensed social worker, but more importantly, a concerned member of the public who has been made aware of and closely following the Kursagi case, particularly with the aspect involving Dr. Arredondo. I have seen evidence that her custody evaluation was clearly biased, and that this evaluation has directly resulted in what audio recordings and photographs indicate is severe ongoing abuse of 2 young children. The children I am referring to are Aiden and Ariel. They have names. They are real little boys being lost in this battle. They are not case numbers, and both of these children are at even higher risk of abuse and neglect due to their formal diagnosis of autism. They are too young to comprehend the situation and to advocate for themselves. As a society, the public, the lawmakers, committee workers, and most importantly, those working with children, such as Dr. Arredondo, have an obligation to protect our most vulnerable population, our children. Every single one of us has failed Aitan and Ariel and are continuing to fail them every day they stay in this situation. We each share in being part of the problem, and I am here to be part of the solution, and I implore you to do the same. I'm grateful today for that my concerns are being heard by the newly formed council, because you have the ability to create positive outcomes for Aitan and Ariel, and endless other children who have or will be further traumatized by the system set up to protect them. This task is overwhelming for a newly formed committee, and here are the questions I hope you will consider answering. What assurance can you offer members of the public, and especially those who are set up to serve their concerns, are not only being heard, but taken seriously rather than slipping through the cracks? I have also received no information that Ms. Kursagi nor any of the multiple witnesses in this case, and others as well, have been contacted by any investigator. Yet I have been provided with information that at least one case against Dr. Arredondo has already been closed. How can an investigation be closed when not a single collateral witness was ever contacted? My desire isn't to overburden you with questions. I respect you and your time. I appreciate the opportunity I'm given to speak with you today. I want to end by reiterating that you have the power the people speaking here today do not. You have the power to investigate and to end this unjust travesty. I hope that you have the information to warrant examining the impact of a biased and fraudulent custody evaluation and the danger it continues to impose. We demand accountability and those involved in these situations. My final question to this council is, will you now take action? Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Ms. Arlette.
Ms. Coronado, do you have public comments you'd like to make?
Sure. I just wanted to make sure that the email I sent on October 7th was received and disseminated prior to the board meeting.
It was. I disseminated it for the October 27th meeting, not this one, but they've gotten it nevertheless.
In fact,
Okay, I just want to make sure because you
read the full thing this morning. Thank you for sending that.
Okay, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Uh-huh. Ms. Edwards.
Madam Chair, this is, I'm sorry, Executive Director Spinks. Madam Chair,
Yes.
The question came up about whether the questions were part of the open comments, the public comments, and I heard Executive Director Spink's answer that they were not. And I'm perfectly fine with that. But what I want to make sure of is, I don't know that I knew that answer myself, and I don't expect that a lot of people do. And so I want to make sure, my concern is that people who are putting things in the question window, thinking that they're going to be addressed or thinking that it's part of public comments, that going forward, not necessarily now, but going forward, that we very clearly state, both in the beginning or as part of the documentation, when the meeting is set, that Q&A on the Zoom meeting is not part of the public comments and does not necessarily mean that those questions will be addressed or answered when placed in there, so we can appropriately set expectations for people who are writing in that forum. Is that something that we might be able to do, Executive Director Spinks?
We could. If you will recall, we had a discussion, it's been several meetings ago, where y'all wanted to explore the use of the Q&A. I do not have the time to monitor the Q&A and answer that and do everything else that I'm doing here. So, I mean, we can put something in the agenda that speaks to what you just spoke of, but I simply, I don't have the bandwidth to be able to monitor it and everything else that's going on.
While we're having,
yeah.
And perhaps we could disable Q&A so that people can chat, ask, make a public comment or not, and direct their questions through staff. It is misleading.
And the reason why I'm asking that is, in reading the Q&A as we're sitting here, some of those comments clearly have expectations, thinking that they are public comments. And I just want to make sure that we reiterate to people that they're not. And I apologize if I'm talking over you. I have a lag. Forgive me, please.
No problem. Thank you.
I wonder, Chair Canseco, I wonder if there are people, I think everyone knows they have the opportunity to make a public comment, and they do so by hitting the raise hand, making sure that everyone who has put something in the Q&A, because there's a lot over there, if they want it to be heard as a public comment, that we give them the opportunity to do so before we move on.
I agree. I think that Daryl made that clear at the beginning, but we can say it one more time.
I think so too, but just in case. Yeah.
If someone's on Q&A then, who has not also spoken, because there are a few of you I can see that submitted your question and then raised your hand as well. Please feel there's still time. You can still raise your hand. I think we've got one with a hand up. If you've already submitted a live public comment that we were able to hear and you have an additional question, I'm not sure that you've already had your 3 minutes. But if you haven't spoken yet, then please do raise your hand. I know I could see that we have at least one more on the list.
Yes, and Miss Edwards has been unmuted. So,
okay.
Miss Edwards, did you have public comments you'd like to give?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. My name is Sarah Edwards, and as everybody else, I thank you for your time, for answering everybody's questions and responding to our concerns. I would like to request clarification at some point regarding the gentleman's agreement that was mentioned in the beginning with the governor's office. If the office intends to make changes to the rule, to this rule, it suggests to me that in the future, the rules regarding intimate relationships with former patients or students is that those are permissible. I hope that I am wrong in this interpretation, because being correct in it would be disturbing, to say the least. The damage that could be inflicted on our clients is immeasurable. And I sincerely hope that I am wrong. Lastly, I wanted to echo others' concerns about the change that would allow discrimination based on gender identity and or sexual orientation. This change is disheartening and quite frankly outrageous. Discrimination is the antithesis of our profession, and it is our duty to serve our community without discrimination, and that everybody has access to our services and our skills. And if this discrimination is permissible, it is heartbreaking.
I don't believe the intent is to permit anything. I believe that by law, we're having one section has to reflect what the statute says. But as you heard, we will take this up at our next meeting. It's certainly not our intent to discriminate at all. And I don't think it's the, I can't speak for the whole state, but I don't think that's anyone's intent, certainly not on this board.
Thank you.
Thank you. The question for those of you who are still thinking about this is, we will need some direction from our executive director, from the governor's office about how to put that in properly so that it's aligned with the law.
Ms. Dalrymple, did you have public comments you'd like to make?
Yeah, I hope you can hear me.
We can.
No one is saying, as I am understanding this today, the reason the change had to be made to the rule is because the language in the rule was different and broader than the language that was in the statute. And those two have to match. That's Administrative Law 101. We may not like the process, but that's the way it has to work. So what I'm understanding from you is that at some point, those people who are up in arms about this change need to contact their state reps and their state senators, and let's get the statute changed so that then the rule can match what's actually in the statute. That's what I'm hearing you say. Have I gotten that straight?
Spot on.
And nobody says that discrimination is okay. So while this process is taking place, everyone is free to not discriminate. Isn't that what I'm hearing?
Exactly.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thanks. You're a great public spokesperson. We'll remember your name.
Ms. James, did you have public comments you would like to make?
You're muted, Ms. James. There you
Can
go.
you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Now we can.
Okay, my name is Brenda James and I'm a supervisory social worker. And first of all, I would like to thank you all for everything that you have done in terms of working toward the backlog. But I do have, I guess I have a question. I continue to support the work of social workers, and I have a situation where I personally am supervising someone, and we started before the changes were made, where we sent the entire packet. She will be done with supervision next week. And I'm trying to find out, should we just submit the verification form? Do we have to send the entire packet? Where do we go from here with that one? Also, there were 3 that were applications sent at the end of July 2020. The agency is paying. And my concern is, in the past, I have not started supervision with anyone whose agency is paying me. Now, if we go to the new system, what is in place, or is there anything in place for those who the agency is paying? Because right now we get a letter from the agency stating that the supervision, they approve you going through the records or whatever. But if we're going to go to just the supervisor being responsible without involving the agency, how is that going to impact us?
The first part of your question, let me just answer briefly. You need to keep doing the way things have always been done until the rule actually changes.
Okay.
Because I don't know, who knows? I mean, if the train jumps off the rails before the council adopts it, things would stay the way they are. So, and this goes for everybody. I need everybody to listen. The rules haven't changed today. They're just proposing the changes to these rules. So you keep operating under the current rules until you hear otherwise. Now, as on your second part of your question, I'll be honest with you, I'm not really sure what you're asking there. I'll have to visit with Miss Bradford after the meeting or something. Alice, did you get the gist of what she was asking? Alice, you're muted.
No, I'm sorry, I didn't quite understand Ms. James' second part of the question.
Okay, the second part of the question is this. There are some agencies who actually pay for the supervision. My question is, when we go to this change, is there going to be any opportunity for the agency up front to be aware of the supervision? Because myself personally, I don't start supervision until I get the approval letter from the board stating that the supervision has been approved. So if an agency is paying, if we're saying that the agency does not really have to be involved, I'm asking how is that going to impact what we're doing in supervision? Or if we should even start supervision?
Well, you won't be getting anything from the council or the board saying that the plan has been approved. That's really all I can tell you there. I don't know how to answer the rest of that.
Okay.
But what the proposed rules do is take us out of the business of having to approve plans, so that it's now, I mean, you're the supervisor, you've taken the course, you're competent to know what you're doing. We're putting that on you. We're trusting you to do it right. And then on the back end, we'll grade your homework and look at it to make sure that what you did and what the supervisee did is it meets with the rules requirements. So that's how it's going to work under these proposed rules.
And my last, and this is just a comment, and it's addressing the backload. And I know that you've beat this dead horse to death, but I just want to speak on behalf of some of those. I know I have a colleague who's been in supervision for 9 months. The supervisee is paying her. She has sent the information required. The last information was sent in November, and she was told that she would be put at the head of the list. And she still has not heard from the board. That's concerning, as well as some people have been contacting social workers saying that their jobs are in jeopardy because they cannot get a response from the board in terms of whether their licensure is up to date or not.
Right, understood. That's why we're working so hard on trying to clear the backlog. That's why we're taking all these extraordinary efforts to try and clear this backlog, because we know what a pinch it puts everyone in. It puts everybody.
I just want to
in
make a comment. I appreciate that, but if they're given 30 days to the end of the month and they don't hear from the board, then they're in jeopardy of losing their jobs.
I understand, ma'am. I do.
Okay. I appreciate your time. And again, thank you for everything. Thank everybody for the hard work you've done. I hope that we get this cleared up. I, for one, would be willing, if there was an opportunity, to help the board with the backlog, if it was possible.
Well, I would recommend that you reach out to Mr. Will Francis, the ED for the NASW chapter for Texas. Mr. Francis and I have talked about some volunteer opportunities where we might be able to use some folks to come in and help us.
Yeah, because I think some of the supervisors probably, if this was known, would probably volunteer their time to come and try to help get this backload taken care of.
Yeah, understood.
Because not all of us are still employed. So like I said, I, for one, would be willing to take on assisting if that's necessary.
Thank you, Ms. James. Sure appreciate that. Daryl, do we have anyone else?
And no, ma'am, that is it.
Okay, folks, this is those of you who've submitted questions and want to make a comment. This is sort of your last chance. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak? If not, Daryl, can we go on to wrapping things up? What are the issues that this council members would like to see addressed at the next meeting? I know we have the issue of the backlog. and providing the public some information about the progress that I know we will have made by then. We have the issue of how to address the discrimination issue, and I'm wondering about taking public comments. Did we do that?
We've already taken public comments.
All right, good. And there was a third thing. I can't remember what that was. What do your notes say?
Extended app deadlines and discussions regarding waiver of fees.
Sure. Is there anything else, folks, that you think is important to make sure we address at the next meeting? Tim, anything that comes to mind for you? All right.
Alice, do we still have a quorum of the social work board here?
Do not.
No.
Okay, so they're dead in the water, Gloria. They can't do anything right now.
Well,
Alice, who did we have that dropped off? Do we know?
Audrey.
Can we
Martha?
get one? Can we get one of them back? Are we shy of one?
Yes. Let me double check. 1, 2, 3. No, we're shy 2. Oh, no. Megan, you're still on the line.
Yeah, just one.
Yeah. So let me get a call in.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but Alice, the only thing we have left is the selection of meeting dates for your board.
That's correct. I mean, we could do it at the December meeting. I just wanted to correct the September 2021 date.
Okay. We can do that at the December meeting, if that's okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want us to adjourn while you wait for Alice to continue? Do you want us to adjourn at the same time?
I think we're gonna, well, they have to adjourn with us because they can't really carry on. But that's it. That's the conclusion of business.
So I am still calling a board member.
Thank you.
You're back?
No.
Okay.
You'll handle the date issue at your December meeting.
Is there anything else that our council members might want to bring forward or to bring to Daryl's attention? If not, we'll see everyone on, is it the 27th is the next one?
Yes, ma'am, 27th.
Everyone okay with that? Thank you all for participating. I'd like to thank the members of the public who sat with us through 2 hours of meeting. I want to make sure that you know that your concerns are our concerns, and we are here to represent you and to make this thing work for the state of Texas. So thanks to all of you, and Daryl, special thanks to your staff. Brenda, I know that you and Jenny have been overwhelmed and working extra time, and Daryl, you too, especially with the new baby in the house. So we are really, really appreciative of your service. We understand that you're staff, but we also understand that above and beyond doesn't begin to cover what you've done. Thanks so much.
And I want the public to understand how unique this particular meeting was here today. This is the very first meeting of the Executive Council after it assumed regulatory control over all the boards. And here we are in a joint meeting with the Social Work Board. This is a level of adaptability that's been evidenced by both the council members and the Social Work Board members. It was not easy. I'm just telling everybody out in the public, it's not easy getting a quorum of board members together on a given date and time. I mean, these are all businessmen and women. They've got their own lives and livings to make. So this is a little bit of a sacrifice for folks to make. So from staff to y'all, I do appreciate y'all working with us because this was an important issue to tackle. And we really appreciate y'all taking the time out to carve us out for us in the day. So thank y'all.
Well, the reason it happened is because we were all wearing pajama bottoms under these shoes.
For the record, I have
Take out
pants
my
on.
slipper and show it to everybody.
Thank you, John.
Don't put that on me, Chair.
We'll have that in the minutes.
Here it is. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you
Thank
next
you.
time.
Thank
Bye-bye.
y'all.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Adios.
Adios.